the next word here is Vav Yod Nun Vav Samik Vav. Va Yenoso. Well, the root
I'm sorry,
word,
can you hold your place there for a second? Don't repeat what you just said, but do you agree that Jonah was dead in the whale, in the fish? Jonah? When I read it, it literally sounds like he was dead.
he was sitting there thinking and praying, so I don't know. So maybe he had a...
Before he got spit up, like he's describing what was happening to him, and he drowned. It reads like he drowned. I don't know.
I don't know. That's a good point. Lazarus was in the grave for 3 days. You know, there's another part of the similar story. And yet Yeshua said he always only sleeping. And it's like, you know, people go into a comatose state. Well, there's one of those words that talks about that here. And I don't know. I don't know.
It's like Yeshua saying, like a wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but none will be given it but the sign of Jonah, which means you're going to die. Death, I think.
That could be. I don't know. I haven't heard that. But anyway.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's a good point. Because it's veritably dead, certainly. Anyway, here, this word ve'yenosa, nun vav samik. Well, that's like the banner, means to be lifted up, raised up from the dead. To lift up a banner, remember, now we go back to the story of Moshe in the wilderness. Put a serpentine-like, coppery, shiny image onto some sort of structural apparatus and lifted it up. Like they say it's a snake on a pole, but not necessarily. And Yeshua said, if I be lifted up, or the Son of Man be lifted up, like Moshe lifted that up, then whoever looks, but that word look is stare at, ponder, gaze, contemplate. It's not just, Jesus is my Savior, we're good to go. It's not necessarily that. Though the thief on the cross said to Yeshua, look, we deserve to be killed. We're a bunch of idiot criminals, but you are an innocent man. Will you please remember me when you come into your kingdom? And Yeshua said, I tell you today, you will be with me. Say, again, where do you put the comma? I tell you, today you'll be with me in paradise. Like they were both going to go to heaven as soon as they died. Or did he say, I tell you today, you will be with me in the future in paradise? So there's two different ways to read. That's another problem with English and Hebrew, is you don't know where to put the comma. So again, to read the words as they stand in like bullet points, charms on a bracelet chain, which we'll get to in just a moment here. That's the way to really read Hebrew. So here, this word nos is like to be lifted up, to be saved. Well, who's going to be saved? Well, in that story, Yeshua said, if I be lifted up so everybody else is saved. But then Moshe lifted up so everybody who was bitten by the snakes would be saved. But as soon as you see the letters Nun and Samik, the Nun is the 14th letter and the Samik is the 15th. Well, Passover was supposed to be kept on the night of the 14th. And then the first day of unleavened bread, when they left Egypt, was the morning of the 15th. That's Nun and Samik, those two letters. It's also right when you might say the center of the month, the 30-day month or 28-day month, 14, 15 are the two letters right in the middle. Whether it's the full moon or the dark moon, that's another conversation. But what I'm saying is when you see something like Nun and Samik or Mem and Nun, your mind can go to the number value, 14, 15 in this case, and you hear like, his banner over us is love. That's Nun Samik. Is love? How is it love? That's quoting from, I think it's Song of Solomon, or that's another matter. But what I'm saying is when your mind then makes connections. So to be lifted up is Nun Samik. That which is lifted up is Nun Samik. To escape, when they escaped Egypt on the 15th day after that miraculous death of the firstborn to the Egyptians on the night of the 14th, interestingly enough, the word Nun Samik or Nun Vav Samik means miracle, escape, flee, drive away, and put to flight. But Nun Vav Samik also has something to do with being hidden and disappeared. So this is invoking stories of the Exodus, but it's also when it says flee, driven away, or hidden or disappeared. Well, who was hidden or disappeared? Jonah in the fish, Yeshua in the grave, the last 10 tribes scattered across the face of the earth, and the face of Yahweh when he turned away from Israel, which this is now going to be talking about. All of those pictures are pulled into the conversation right here by that word. The next two words are Mishnayo, Mifneo. Okay, Mem Shinun Aleph Yod Vav, Mishnayo, and then Mem Penun Yod Vav, Mifneo. Vav suffix is either O or U, or sometimes a V sound. But here's the point. The word Mishnah means second, because Shinun Hey, Shana, like Rosh HaShana, means head of the year. So Shana means year, but because the year changes from 2000 to 2001, for example, but it means different and variant. So Shinun Aleph here, the derivative suffix Shinun Aleph versus Shinun Hey, is the word for teeth. Well, teeth, picture two rows of teeth, they chomp, they come against each other. So the word lashon, which is translated tongue, is a different or variant tongues, which means opposing languages, opposing picture. Something changes, something's different. It's also the color red and the number 2. And you have 1, everything's a chad, everything's the same. Suddenly you have the letter bet, the second letter, whoa, there's something different going on. Now there's the letter bet as a prefix means in, on, with, among, and through. It's like, oh, that's getting along. But it also means adversarial, different, opposed, wow, against, wow, there's this other thing, this other person that you're married to or tied to. I'm mentioning that because this concept is pulled in on the word rachav, which is the word merkabah. Mem resh kuf bet is the word for tank. The Merkabah is the name of the Israeli tank, but it's also chariot, which is to say here you have horses and humans. But it also means a knight, a horse and rider is a rakava. It means to be put tandem, which is like 2 axles on a truck or a trailer. So it's something with something else. Just saying, you have to picture these things as you're thinking about the language. So the word meshnao means he changed, and then mifneo, his face. But the word shin nun aleph is not just change, it also means hatred. So the word, 2 words above, is enemy or hate, but here the word change means face of hatred. So who's the enemy? Did Yahuwah, is Yahuwah saying that he's going to stand up and pour out his hatred on his enemies? That's one way to read it. But the other way to read it here is that Yahweh himself changed his countenance to his people from being their benevolent father who loves them and cares for them and pours out chesed, tender loving kindness, to be a face of fierce hatred, which is the exact reason why people say the God of the Old Testament is this big, mean, ugly monster God. And whew, thank heaven for gentle Jesus, meek and mild, the God of the New Testament. This is exactly why, right here, Yahuwah hid himself in his countenance of a face of fierce hatred against his own people and the rest of the earth too. Why? That phrase, that question is expressed numerous times throughout the scripture by David in the Psalms as well as many other places, and it's answered. And we keep talking about that subject and giving the answer through all these Erictology videos. The reason is because we turned away from his word, his instructions, his face, recognizing who he is. And we, as this one verse says, Israel imputed things that were just not true, that were just not so, to Yahweh. They gave him a different character, and he became according to the character that they gave him. Imagine that. And we'll find that said numerous times in this chapter. When we appropriate a character, a reference of his identity and his intention, and we assign an intent of him doing malicious evil against us, then he conforms to that image that we created. What? Do not create images of other gods, Israel. That's the commandment. Why? Because the powers that end up ruling over us conform to the image we invent. If we invent a God represented by Christmas and Easter, that's the God that takes over. When we invent gods of the Vikings, the Aztecs, the Huns, the Celts, whoever it might be, we are creating, as it were, demonic forces to empower us and enslave us and rule over us as our master. When we revert to the words of Yahuwah, righteousness, justice, truth, and kindness, these four matters he repeats constantly. Zadika, righteousness. Mishpat, justice. Truth is emet, and chesed is tender love and kindness. He gave us ways to walk according to his face. His instructions were the 7 Moedim found in Leviticus 23 and the day of the Shabbat. And when we walk in those ways, it identifies Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. That's his identity. Anything other than that is a distortion, a convolution, satanic, different Elohim Achrim, and is not him. And therefore, he just disappears and hides. Hides where? Where did he hide himself? In the words of the Hebrew language, the Hebrew alphabet, in the words of his instructions, his commands. There's a verse here that talks about that. He hid himself in his commands, his mitzvot, mem zadi vav tav. Mitzvot is also the word translated matzah, like the Chag HaMatzot, same exact spelling, different phonetics, different syllabalization. And it also means, based on the word memzadi aleph, memzadi hey, find out how to do something. Find out how to find Yahuwah. Find out how to find or get the Elohim of Israel to come back out of hiding. When, how, and where. Remember when Yeshua rose up, kufed, kumid, 40 days after rising from the dead, or after the first day of wave sheaf, 40 days later, remember you were counting to 50 for Pentecost, for Shavuot. 40 days later, he rose up and the Melachim, the angel, said, hey, he's going to come back and land in the same place, the same way. There's more to that story than just the narrative. What does that mean? How is he going to come back? That was the very word coming back to the Mount of Olives. That's Zit, Zion, Yod, Tav is the word Zit, which is olive tree. We can elaborate every single one of these words. I'm going to try to stick to this. But what I'm saying is that the study, we start with one word for the conductor, which isn't even called a verse in the KJV. And the whole thing opens up. Brilliant, illustrious, glorious, unto eternity. As Yeshua is lifted up, Nun Samek, so I can plug that into this phrase and say, and we're going to talk about the Mishkan pattern next week probably, but what I'm saying is that to correlate the letters to the Mishkan, absolutely, certainly, to the 7 days of creation, yep, same pattern, to the Moedim, If you see the Moedim, you can see how the letters fit. But guess what? If you're a Christian and you have no regard to the Moedim because you think it's been replaced by Sunday, Christmas, Easter, Halloween, the language is kept locked up, lost in the tomb. But if Yeshua is lifted up, so that the incredible embedded key to the code here of Nun Samik is that Yeshua said, if I be lifted up, just like Moshe lifted up, and I know some people whose Bibles do not include the book of Exodus. Moshe lifting up the serpent. Doesn't have the Torah, doesn't have the Old Testament. So it's lost. The key is lost. The key of Yeshua, the Jews don't read the New Testament. So for Yeshua to be lifted up, for Yeshua to be the meaning, the life of the engineered structure, the noon of the Samik, for us to escape the bondage of the tomb, of the, you might say, the oppression that Yahweh has succored his people to by the hands of the Greeks and Romans and everybody else on the face of the earth, is lost. It's only until the time, Ayin Dalet Ayin Tav, that you can see that Yeshua is the Nun Samik, and that the Samik Nun, like the word for the bush, is the orchestration of the meanings of the shapes of the letters engineered to be having the meaning of the story, the Nun of the Samik, which is the story of Yeshua himself, the one lifted up. And that changes everything. So I can read that changes his face of hatred. So the fact that this second verse here says his face was changed to a face of hatred, that's only one way to read it. But I can read this, that if I lift up Yeshua and realize, just like Moshe lifted up that whoever was bitten by the vipers, but the word for nachash or snake is also enchantment, to be enticed and bamboozled by the enchantments of sorcery. The snake. Mesmerizing. They call it mesmerizing because of a psychologist by the name of Mesmer who had this way of analyzing people's minds. There's all these pictures saying, how do we get Yahweh's face back? It's kind of like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Oh, I just want to go back home to Kansas. How? Hey, you got the ruby slippers. Just click your heels. What? I could have done that any day? Ha ha, you didn't know. No, we couldn't have done it any day, because Yahweh, we'll find in another verse here, he says, he decreed, we signed up for a subscription of a term of incarceration, of punishment, of blindness, 2,730 years. It doesn't mention the years here, but we know that's the case based on Leviticus 26 and Ezekiel chapter 4. We've talked about that before. So at the time that the term of our subscription is over, our banishment, our coma, our ignorance, our blindness, our being captive, when that's up, we return to these words and these letters. And just like Yeshua coming out of the grave, just like Jonah being vomited out by the fish, just like those bitten by the snakes, healed. When you gaze at these words, these letters, you see the face of Yahuwah, our Elohim. You see Yeshua, the King. It's right here in these letters. And Israel is brought back as a nation to triumph over its enemies on the face of the earth. Not talking about, oh yes, we get to go to heaven when we die. That's not this story. Though he promises us eternal life. Verse 3. Like the evaporation when a wind blows away smoke, like melting the wax in the face of fire, the same way Yahuwah will isolate the ones doing evil, and they will melt away from the face of Elohim. That's verse 3. Noon, Dalet, Pei, driven, scattered, evaporate, vanish, dissipated, blown away. Gone. The ones doing evil from the face of Elohim. But the other way to read this, the face of Elohim, in the place of, and then the word Elohim is spelled Aleph Lamed Hey Yod Mem, but Aleph Lamed Hey also is the word for curse. Curses. It's also the word for oath, obligation, oak, a bat or a cudgel, like a bat that you beat something and smash something with. Supernatural beings. Aleph Lamed Hey would be the word for goddess. Wail and lament. You could say the evil one's victims. You could read this, that the evil ones will make themselves victims of supernatural beings. Goddesses who beat the bejeebers out of them. They've brought the curse upon themselves because their Elohim, the Elohim of their invention, who you might say, like pirates. Pirates thinks it's the way to live, to steal, kill, destroy. They don't have any sense of answering to a higher order. Even Francis Drake, one of the most famous pirates, he was a famous captain that worked for Queen Elizabeth, but she hired him and told him to go out and pirate the Spanish ships. So his job was a pirate, even though he was authorized by the Crown of England. What I'm saying is, going back to that movie Saving Private Ryan, the thing about being in the military is that when you're commanded to do an atrocity against humanity by your commanding officer, you as a soldier have no voice to disagree. And so you're left with this inner trauma of saying, am I a good man or a bad man? I don't know. I've lost all reference. I can't tell. If I rebel against my commanding officer, I'm now a bad person and I'll be severely punished or shot by him as a traitor, as a deserter. But if I do what he says, maybe I'll be hung out to dry from the creator of the universe for doing evil against my fellow human. And you're left completely no way to know until the day you stand in front of the great white throne and you hear the words, well done, or depart from me. And we're left absolutely not knowing, in spite of what we choose to believe. Oh, let's be good Christians so we can die and go to heaven. But then all of a sudden you read these words that are written in the Torah and you realize Christianity is satanic. It's adverse. It's wayward. It's different. It's other voices. It's spinning to the right and the left, this side and that side. And Yahweh says, go on the straight path and don't go to the right or the left. So am I a heretic, a heathen, for saying that Christianity is waywardly, satanically adverse, divergent? Or am I calling it the truth? The only reckoning we have of truth are these words of the Torah. But as soon as you write the words in Greek and Latin and English, instead of Hebrew, you've got different words. It's already foreign. It's already different. It's already totally a different message. So now who do you believe? Do you believe me, or do you believe Michael Heiser, Miles Jones, and Michael Brown? Verse 4. The righteous ones, Yod Shin Mem Chet Vav. The word Shin Mem Chet is rejoice. It's pronounced simcha or sameach. Those doing righteousness. That's the word Zadik. But the word Zadik, remember, also means victory, deliverance, and salvation. Very similar to the word Nun Zadichet. It's also a word we mentioned last week that means it'll be a merit. So the ones that are righteous, there's none righteous, no, not one. You can only be found righteous by the blood of Christ. How does that all figure out? It's another matter. But what it says in verse 4 is the righteous ones will rejoice. And the rejoicing, here that word then is ayin lamed zadi, and it means joy, exultation, exuberant, a merry heart. in the face or unto the regard of Elohim. In other words, one's doing righteousness will find the face of Elohim. They will be restored to his face. And then it says, and Yod Shin, sheesh, what is that word? Sheesh. You know that song? She'll be riding 6 white horses when she comes. She'll be riding 6 white horses. Well, the 6 is this word sheesh, and also white and alabaster. It's also the word for linen, silk, marble, shoshone, shoshana, rose, lily, beautiful. It also means rejoice, exult, exhilarate in rejoicing. That's it for verse 4. This is verse 4. Righteous ones will rejoice with exultation before the face of Yahweh, rejoicing 6 white marble with incredible. I mean, again, they're using pictures to say, well, how do we say it's the greatest of rejoicing? Of here, exultation, exuberant, merry, joy, rejoice, happy. And so in English, they take one word and they maybe use these different words different times. You can only stick one word in. But in Hebrew, it's the greatest, the greatest. Again, English, pleasure, happy, joy, rejoicing, merry. I mean, just it's like the ecstatic. In the face, in the presence, lifnei, lamed pei nun yod, in the face of Elohim. But I could look at lamed pei nun yod and say, lamed pei, LF, LP, lap it up. It has to do with the mouth. Laugh. Well, that's your mouth laughing. Pei nun. Pei is the mouth that opened. Nun is something that jumps out, like nun jumping out of mem, like a fish jumping out of the water. Yod, that means my, it's possessive. I laugh. I will burst out of my mouth. Well, what is it that bursted out of the mouth of the face of Yahuwah? His words. When out of the mouth of Yahuwah came these words, the reality, just like Jonah being vomited out of the fish, Yeshua bursting out of the grave, healing bursting out of the noon stomach being lifted up, and gazing. Hey, bet, tet. Bet, tet, tet. These 2 words where we get the word habitat and habet. That's the word that means to gaze at and look at. It also means aspect. To look at the letters and see how they fit within the alphabet is exactly what those words mean. But it doesn't translate that way. And when you see from the mouth of Elohim the curse, the Aleph Lamed Hey Yod Mem, just translated God, gods. Aleph Lamed Hey, as I said a moment ago, means oath, obligation, supernatural beings wailing and lamenting. And when you realize from the mouth of Elohim came a promise of the covenant, an eternal covenant with Israel, saying, you walk in my ways, you get blessed. You don't walk in my ways, you invite the curse on your own head, and you empower the demons and supernatural beings whose job it is to torment us, are empowered to do the very thing, to torment us through the hands of our enemies, through our own bodies of failing with disease, through our finances, through our cars, through our pets, through our relationships, through whatever means they can employ. But when we see what the words of Yahweh are, the rejoicing, and then verse 5, sing it unto Elohim, his song, be his minstrel of his name. That word Shemo, his name, his face, his name, his place, his renown. And then this word Salo, Samek Lamed Vav. That's similar to Samek Lamed Hey, which means Selah, which is stop and think, like ponder and gaze. But this means reconsider what was rejected in the light of. Here's this word for, like the word Merkabah, but it's Lamed Resh Kaf Bet, which means as tandem with. And then there's this word Bet Ayin Resh Bet Vav Tav, Bet Arabs. With the Arabs, the Arabs, blendings, well mixed, agreeable. It's translated Arabs. Something is blended with, and then it says Bet Yod Hey. That's translated with Yah or of Yah. Bet Yod Hey. Yod Hey is the word translated Yah. There's a few places in the scripture, a couple places in the Psalms. This is one of them. There's another one, I think, in this same chapter. There's just translated Y-A-H, Yah. That's the short name of Yod Hey Vav Hey, Yahweh, just Yah. And then the next word means his name, Shmo. And then another word for rejoicing, Ayin Lamed Zion, rejoice, exult, to his face, La Lifneo, Lamed Pedun Yovav, which I could say, well, look to his face by looking at the words that jump out of his mouth. But here's the interesting thing. For the word for rejoice, Ayin Lamed Zion Vav, Lamed Zion is where we get the word from Lion Vav Zion, lose, loser, slander, speak evil, turn aside, crooked. So you look back at this and you go, wait a second, look at this whole voice. Sing it to Yahweh, his song. So you got that Aleph Bet song. Aleph is the plan that Abba purposed in his heart. Bet is the container of all he would impart. Gimel is the sent one to return us home again, to enter through the door. The Dalet, hey, look, he's the Vav, man. Won't go through the whole song, but that's the Aleph Bet song. The song of his letters, of his name, of his plan. Weigh and consider in the light of, now here's these two words, La Rachav Be'aravot. And I think it translated is, what if? What if the expressing of Yahweh's place was a place that we should be rejoicing, but it was slandered and made crooked so that we would turn aside? Well, who would do that? The devil, the satanic one, the one who, like the snake, slithers. And remember, the word Satan, literally, it means canoe, because when you paddle the canoe, the front zigzags back and forth. The word for rover, rambler, been a rambling man, the Allman Brothers. That word rambler is the word Satan. A rover and a wanderer. Also the word Satan and Satan, to rove, to wander, to go back and forth, to zigzag. It's all the word Satan in the Hebrew. So we listened to a voice speaking evil of Yahweh's ways. They're the Jewish stuff. Oh, you want to be a Heb, huh? We were told lies, and whether Yahweh perpetuated it, told the devil to go lie to us, whatever, put it in the Catholic Church, put it in the Protestants, it doesn't matter. We thought that the name of Yah was a thing of disgrace. In fact, even the word bunch of yahoos. I mean, you could go, Yahoo, woohoo. That's a good thing, but a bunch of yahoos, form of derision that the Assyrians gave to the people of Israel. So this is saying, go back and reconsider, what if the very thing we were told to throw away because it was nothing is where he hid himself? That's everything. Verse 6, Abi, energetic sprout, I wish, I want, but it's also translated my father. Orphans, and he chooses widows. Elohim as the dwelling, lair, habitation, clubhouse, his kadosh. What does this mean? That he loves orphans and widows? Maybe, widows. But it could say this is a clue to the riddle. That which is cast away and considered to be worthless is where he has put in his best sacred stuff. And the word for Bemaon, Bet Mem Ayin Vav Nun is not just place of dwelling, but Ayin Vav Nun is one who appreciates his stuff. to make it your burden, your affliction, to be humbled by it, I'm going to take up this matter. Like studying these words. It means to be stuck in a rut. Like your wheel off the road when there's snow and off to the side where you can't see it and you get stuck in a rut. Nobody could see this Paleo-Hebrew. All of a sudden, it's the great rut. It's the furrow. It's that thing which grabs you that just won't let go, like a bear trap, once you see what it is. Verse 7, Elohim dwells. Now this is Mem Vav Shin Yod Bet. So Shin Yod Bet is one who dwells or sits. It's the root of the word to return or Shabbat. So this is saying one, Yahweh will dwell, or is this saying he's going to return? Return from what? Remember, he hid himself, he went away, he disappeared because his people said things that weren't so about him and chose to believe things that weren't so. Remember right out of the Exodus, Yahweh says, hey, I've prepared the promised land for you, and everything's all set up. Everything's poised to just happen like a row of dominoes coming to the land, and boom, ba, 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 and everything is going to happen. And the people said, oh, you only brought us out here to kill us. No, I brought you out here to give you the promised land. No, you just brought us out here to kill us with starvation and thirsting and giants. And he says, if you keep saying that, that's what you're going to get. They said it again. He says, okay, that's it. You're all going to die in the wilderness for 40 years. And then the next generation, I'll give the promised land. I'm saying that because this chapter goes on to say what we invent to believe of Yahuwah is who he will be. So if we choose to invent to believe exactly according to the words he gave us, then he will live into that great esteem, that great champion of Israel, the one who will forgive our sins, wash them away, thanks to the blood of Yeshua, but thanks to the fact that that's what he said he would do. And who he operates by, whether it's by the hand of Samson or Gideon or Moshe or Joseph or David or Daniel or whoever, or Yeshua, he said, I sent you many saviors. He implements his ways through whoever he wants, but thanks to Yahuwah for wanting to save us and forgive us. And it goes on to say that in a couple of minutes. But here it says, Yahweh dwells, and here's the word, Yod, Het, Yod, Dalet, Yod, Mem. Het, Yod, Dalet. Hid is where we get the word hidden in English. Het, Vav, Dalet, Het, Yod, Dalet, Hey, riddles. It's also the word Yod, Het, Dalet, which means unite, devoted, singled out, was alone or exclusive. And he said, you alone, Israel, have I made myself known, that I hide with you, that I'm with you. The next word is bita, bet yod tav hey. It means housed in. So he has hid himself in riddles. But the word hid, Yod Het Dalet, also means one, single, solitary, mono. It's a thin sliver. Well, that's like the word orphans and widows that he just talked about before. So just like Samson had made these riddles and playing of Hebrew words, and Manoach, Samson's father, means that one who assigns meaning to words. Samson's father was all about understanding the language and doing exactly what we're doing. So did Moshe. So did looking at the word for the burning bush. You know, what was the malach? What was the message coming out of the Hey, Samik Nun, Hey? Even the word Yeshua, we know his name isn't Jesus because it's a meaningless word that isn't, well, it's kind of a Greek format, but Yahusha or Yeshua would be the Hebrew word because it means something. Hidden in riddles, housed in commands, Mem Vav Zadi Yod Aleph. So when I said that he was hidden in commands, he gave us things to do that if we did them, it would manifest. There's a latent authority. There's like having real life bullets in a gun, but they're invisible. They just look like stupid commands, like sit down or take a nap on the Sabbath day. This next word, Aleph Samik Yod Resh Yod Mem. But the word Samik Yod Resh, it comes from Samik Resh as a root, which means to turn around, sullen, or to be sorry. But Aleph Samik Yod Resh means to be a prisoner or a captive. Samak Yod Resh comes from also the word, a derivative that means visit, tour, scout, reconnaissance, that's like a spy, thorn, pot, kettle, a boat hook. What? A hook or a boat? Or maybe it's an anchor. What if it means one who will be taken prisoner or captive being anchored? It's also the word, Samach Yod Resh, is also the word for stinking, rotting garbage. And special ops forces, like the Delta Force of Navy SEALs or Army Rangers of American military. What? What does this word mean? I'm going to go back and spy out. I'm going to search. I'm going to visit. Anchored in, turn around and go back to the commands? As if Yahweh was hidden, housed, lurking there? That's what it says. That's what this study is. We're doing the very thing this is talking about in verse 7 of Psalm 68. The next word, Bet Kaf Vav Shin Resh Vav Tav. That's actually another related word is Samak Resh, Samak Vav Resh means middleman or agent, which means somebody in between. So somebody tucked between, like banditos hiding in the rocks type of a thing, ready to jump out at you. Like a spindle wound up. This is where we get the word kosher, prosperity, suitable. There's something service, assist, maintain, which is shin, resh, vav, tav. So I could look at the word kosher, kaf, vav, shin, resh, or this is actually bet, kaf, vav, shin, resh, vav, tav. And I could say, well, bet means in the condition of, kaf is like, and then shin resh or shin resh vav tav means service, assist, maintain, let loose, dissolve, open, untie, set free, luxuriantly saturate. It's the same word for bracelet chain, or where Abraham's wife named Sarah, or it's a poet. It's somebody who is a minstrel singing songs. And so what he's saying is when we make ourselves a prisoner to Yahuwah's mitzvot, like the word matzah, giving a command, find out how to do something. It is the secret formula that unties and sets free, sets us at liberty out from the oppression of our enemies. And then he says, only, aleph kaf, like ak sameach, only rejoice. And then it says, Samak Vav Resh Resh Yod Mem, which is a derivative of that other word for Samak Yod Resh, which is the word for scout, tour, reconnaissance. But this is the word for rebellious or stubborn. And then the word Sheken, like Mishkan, this is Shekano, or his dwelling, he dwells, Zadi Chet, Yod Chet, Hey. Well, that was the word I mentioned, the word Zadi Chet, like Nutzak, the first word. Sparkly, brilliant, pure, polished, dazzling, glowing, bright, clear, but it's also dry and arid. So I could read this two ways, that the rebellious and the stubborn will only find this to be dry, arid, thirsty, drought. We can't drink any water. What'd you bring us out here for? But the one who anchors himself like a boat hook to gaze and look at and burrow himself into the furrow will find Yahweh dwelling there in brilliance. And everything opens up. Everything is suddenly set free. Verse 8. There's like 36 verses here. This is a long one, just so you know. Elohim has exalted you unto the face of your people, cutting off compromise, gained by violence, you as oil, Selah. What does that mean? I'm telling you that this is a very difficult chapter, so we have to look at each of these words. Elohim has This is the word bet zadi aleph tav. Well, bet zadi is mud or silt. Zadi aleph tav is to go into exile or being cast out or published. Zadi aleph hey is excrement, befouled. Just Elohim has thrown you away from his face as shit, as filth. Your people, you have gained by violence. You caused to lead your people steps of compromise, arbitrating as you assessed, as you placed. In other words, this is the word shemen, which is the word, this word here is bet, yod, shin, yod, mem, vav, nun. So the consonant letters of shin, mem, and nun, or bet, yod, shin, yod, mem, vav, nun. So you take out the yods and vavs, and then you take off the prefix letter bet, and you're left with shemen. Nun could be a suffix, but shin, mem is the word for name. Shemen, mem, nun means to count. It's also the word for numerator. So with the shemen means to, is this synonym with the word Eric, ayin resh kaf, and also shin ayin resh. It means to account, appraise, assess, determine. What is this? What does this mean? What is this worth? With the attitude that our leaders throughout these thousands of years have told us what this stuff is and what good is it and who is Yahweh and who is Jesus. The Jews are told that Jesus is a rotten, filthy infidel, cast away, burning in excrement in hell as we speak. So if your Jewish rabbis are telling you that, I think they are themselves filthy, lying infidels, thieves, stealing the truth from your ears so that you will be put to death. So any rabbi that tells you that Jesus Christ is the man who was a filthy infidel, a scum of the earth, a heretic, well, is he telling you the truth because the Christian Jesus has taken us away from the Torah? But the real Yeshua, if they still won't tell you about him, then they're liars, thieves, and killers, which means they're far from the kingdom of Elohim. So you can't believe your rabbi, but you can't believe your professors and teachers and Michael Brown and Michael Heiser and Miles Jones. If they don't know how to read these letters, then can you believe everything else they say? I don't know. You're going to have to decide for themselves. But the word shemen here is the word oil, which means to think, to appraise, to give account for, to understand the value of. And the 5 bridesmaids who didn't get in when the bridegroom came by surprise after midnight is because they didn't have oil. And they were told to go buy some, get some. What, did they have to listen to videos? Did they have to go listen to sermons? Did they have to go determine the value and then came back and say, we want to be your people? And he said, I don't know you. The door was slammed in their face, just like the people who didn't get into Noah's Ark. And then this word Selah, the last word of verse 8, means you better stop and think about this, because remember, Samech Lamed means to put into scales of balance and weigh. It means to make light of, like, yeah, whatever, that's making light of it. But it's also to say, wait a minute, it was cast aside as worthless, nothing. And yet it's everything. You better think about what it's really worth. That's what the word Selah means. Samech Lamed Hey, or as we saw before, Samech Lamed Vav. And here Samech is an engineered structure. Well, scales of balance, you've got the vertical, you've got a platform, and then you've got the arm, and you got these, it's all, people who know engineering, you design tools and apparatus to accomplish a particular job. And this particular job, Lamed Hey, Lamed is the voice of authority, which is actually, according to the Mishkan pattern, the Torah instructions that we were told to teach and learn and rehearse and ponder them in our hearts and teach them to our children. As we were saying the other day, Deuteronomy 6, perpetually, generation after generation, forever. And the church that says these words were done away with, you only have to be washed by the blood of Christ, is a different voice, is not a chad, therefore satanic, therefore shana. Shinun Aleph. So what do we do with this understanding? Do we take it to heart or do we throw it away? Verse 9, Aretz, that's the word earth. Resh Ayin Shin Hey, that's the word quake. Noisy, seismic activity, bombarded, sensational. Resh Ayin, remember that's the word for evil, but it also means shout and think. Ayin Shin Hey is to incite the doing, Asha. So you could say Resh Zadi is pronounced rats, so the word earth is aretz, and then the TZ sound became the TH. Isaac Moses in the study talks about that, where that's why it's called the earth. But Aleph means I will, so that means the word earth means I will run like a rat. I will run like rats in a maze. So for Aleph to be the first letter, the first word of the alphabet, means that the creator of the alphabet, the creator of the heavens and the earth, first person self-referential, says, I'm going to run this obstacle course. I'm going to run this race, this gauntlet of Aleph through Tav as a life of the human on the face of the earth. I'm just reading the letters Aleph, Res, Zadi in the word Eretz, translated earth. The creator of the universe, who is the creator of the alphabet, is going to put himself somehow as first person into running the gauntlet race, the obstacle course of these 22 letters. That's Yeshua, first person. How does that work? The word made human, John 1, different matter. Let's move on, but I'm just saying that's how you read into all these things. Aleph Pei Shemayim, Af Shemayim. Well, the word Aleph Pei is nose. It's also character. It's also wrath. So that something characterized or written into the heavens. Next word, Nun Tet Pei Vav. Drops, drips, exact measure, filled to the brim from the face of Elohim. This Sinai. Well, the word Sinai, Samach Yod Nun Yod. Remember, here's those two letters, Samach and Nun. The word for bush, Hey, Samach Nun Hey, the word for Mount Sinai, it's also the word for China, the country, and it means erudite scholar. Next words, Mifnei, or away from the face of Elohim, Elhi of Israel. Back up. Eretz, Ra'esha, Ef, Shemayin, Natafo, Mifnei Elohim, Za, Sinai, Mifnei Elohim, Elohi Israel. So something about the last two words, the Elohim of Israel. From the face of the Elohim, the erudite scholar who looks close, drop by drop. It's spoken of in the heavens, and it's the exact thing which is going to shake the earth, and I'm going to stir up the activity of doing this. So Sarah Perry, hi Sarah, down in the Phoenix, Arizona area, is really interested in looking at the voice of what's speaking in the heavens. Why? Because it's a parallel voice to what's written in the alphabet. So the study I was doing with John Dilday and Carrie Alexander that we were talking about, we're going to do another thing on the Mazarot here coming up pretty soon. It's talked about here. Exact measure, filled to the brim. And it's also the word for tet pei, or tet pei vav pei, tet pei pei, is a mincing walk like a child, which is why they're called toddlers. And you realize that when it says have these, like the Nephilim and the phylactery, its word for drop, or an ornament between the eyes, is actually like a drop of water. And there's something about the picture of a drop of water, but it also means to speak and prophesy. Why did he choose the picture of a drop of water to mean speak or prophesy, exact measure, the mincing walk of a toddler child, and the voice that's in the heavens? And it's the voice of Elohim that the erudite scholar will find the place of Yahweh declaring himself what it means to be the Elohim of Israel, the champion, the deity, the one who's bound by obligation and oath, Aleph Lamed Hey Yod. My oath, my obligation is to be bound to be Israel's savior, redeemer, and deliverer, and the champion who is going to blow away all her adversaries. And it's written in the heavens and in these letters. And if you look at the Samach Yod Nun, the Samach Nun, if you look at the shape of the letters, the meaning of the letters, and the order of the letters, you'll find it. This is where it is, Zion Hey. Because Zion, Yeshua crucified, the spectacle, behold this man, Eke Homo, like Pilate said, here it is on reveal, on display, Yeshua being lifted up, Nun Samach, is captured by the letters Zion, Haid. And again, if you know what the letters mean, it's a secret code that's not so secret. It's blatantly and clear, but it was encoded all these years. Verse 10, gushing, Gimel Shin Mem, that's realization, manifest. Remember we talked about latent and manifest? This word means manifest, concrete, rain, actually raining. Told it was going to rain, now it's raining. That's the word, gushing, personified, actualized. Nun Dalet Bet, that's where you get the word Nadab, as in Nadab and Abihu, the two guys of Aaron's sons that were killed on inauguration day of the Mishkan. But it means voluntary, volitional, willing, free offerings, donations, incite, impel, generosity. Nun Dalet means heaped or moving. Dalet Bet is a bear. So something about realizing this will compel people to quit being stingy and start giving, start helping each other. Just instead of, as you were saying earlier, church being church for all these centuries being a place of grabbing money, it'll be a place of giving away everything you can because you realize the way the kingdom of heaven really works. The next word, Tav Nun Yod Pei. Nun Yod Pei is where we get the word sprinkle drops, very similar to Nun Tet Pei, and it has to do with a sift or a sieve, a treetop, Nun Vav Pei, Nof, like panoramic view that's swaying and sift. It's examined closely, sift everything down, and what you'll see is the meaning of the letters. Elohim Nachal Taka, that the Nachal is inheritance, but it's also a swarm of bees, torrent, or to acquire. It's to acquire your inheritance suddenly, like producing a swarm of bees. I know a guy that was working up on a roof on a fascia board painting, and he bumped the thing, and all of a sudden a swarm of 10,000 hornets come out, and he just dropped his paint bucket and went running off the roof, diving off. Those bees came out in a frenzy. That's a picture of Nachal, swarm of bees, torrent, flash flood. And Yahweh says when we start giving based on understanding what he said, it produces that picture. And Nun Lamed Aleph Hey. Well, Lamed Aleph means the word no. Lamed Aleph Hey is an expression of nothingness. And Nun Lamed Aleph Hey Vav Lamed Aleph Hey means weariness, fatigue, or tired. So he's basically saying, you'll never weary. There's no lack. There's no fatigue. You can't use up what Yahweh has promised his people. Aleph Tav Hey is translated Y-O-U, you, but it's also in Aleph Tav being revealed, or the Aleph, what I, self-referential first person, what I have intended to Tav make happen when it expresses Hey, in you, Aleph Tav Hey, and then the word, where we get the word Conan, Kaf Vav Nun Nun, real, solid, firm, established, right, correct, constituted, directed, arranged, ordered, and then Tav Hey, Te, or Ta, is the last word here. It means essence. It's where you get that word Tehom, which is deep, void. Tav Hey Hey, astonished, amazed, meditate, ponder this, smell, examine. You're dumbfounded, like void of thoughts, like, I can't believe this. What the heck? What? That reaction, which we have all had to these words, that's what Tav Hey means. To see the reality. Well, that word Israel, like so I know earlier you say, well, we're all Israel. No. Israel is one who appreciates and wants true, right, straight, plumb, level, square, honest, valid, authentic. Not everybody wants that, even if they're the genetic descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But we can choose to be, and as it'll say elsewhere, even if you're not of the descendants by genetics, you can certainly opt in.